Live. Hey, welcome everybody. We're glad you're joining us today here on the podcast. Joe Fuentes is out in West Texas on a job, so I am the host with the most. We got Homer Dickey with us. Galen, of course, he's back, and Coach Glenn Hughes is back with us today. We're going to talk about humility. We're going to talk about what is true humility and why, or how do we get it? We get it jacked up. We don't really see and know what biblical humility looks like, because in the world, for the most part in the world, what we as men are portrayed as humility is being wusses, and it's further thing from the truth. So we're just going to open up a conversation, a few questions, a few things just to throw at you all to kind of get it going. Homer, most of y'all don't know, if you do know, Homer's a part of the AFCC. He's a part of our church. He's been a friend of mine for 20 plus years, and my youngest, his oldest, grew up together. So Homer's been around. Y'all met Coach last week. We got to have him back today, and of course everybody knows Galen. He's here with us, and we want to talk about humility today, and breaking the stereotype between humility and strength. And how most men define strength as power or toughness or grit, just not turning it loose. And then but you don't often see humility as that. I think too often we see humility as being weak. And how do we go about changing that concept?
Real quick, my dad told me, because I was pretty hard-headed, and he said, and I go back, son, every tough man I know, every bad person is in prison or a graveyard. And he died when I was 23. So it's just now, I'm like, that's starting to register a little bit more.
Yeah. How old was he when he died?
42.
So you're
49.
You're 49. Yeah. So you've passed him.
Yes.
Ain't it amazing when you catch up to where they were? Like my dad died at 60, and I'm 54 now.
Right.
So now I'm like, that's what he meant, because now I'm there, right? And that your dad's advice it's true.
Yes.
True.
So learning to walk away, which seems strange right now that I'm saying this.
Yeah.
But that's been, apparently been hard for me.
Right. Yeah.
Some things you just cannot walk away from, or everything you can walk away
from. Yeah.
It's just having the mindset to do it.
Right. And the discipline.
Right.
To walk away, or to humble yourself.
Yes.
And not go on the attack or the aggressive, or defend, or
that's it. I want to kick the tire. I'm just going to get a lug wrench. I'm just going to go get a lug wrench.
Well, and especially when you have a tendency to be angry.
Yep.
Or get on the temper pretty quick. There's a gray area there between knowing when it's a good time to be angry and one time to shut up, and and like you said, that humility is oftentimes seen as weakness.
Right.
And especially in today's world, my dad's generation, like Galen was saying, they had a totally different mindset of humility and toughness, and a lot of times that didn't fit in the same bucket.
Not at all. You very, very rarely seen that in the same man. You either seen bullheaded, fighting, fussing and cussing, or you seen a man walking off and everybody thought he was a wuss, or man, you just going to take that? I tell you, it's probably the hardest thing that I have to am learning to do is take it. I don't have a problem taking it when it's at you. I can minister to somebody humbly and know and feel your pain, and I encourage you. But man, when it's personally to me, it's like there's like that switch wants to get flipped. So let me ask you a question: the toughest men that you know are truly the humblest. Mm-hmm. And if you really ask yourself why is that, it's because they don't have to prove that they're the toughest. They just are. You know what I'm saying? Like when I used my papaw in that story in the book. I mean, I don't ever remember seeing my papaw mad. And I visit with my mother a little bit, and she's getting older, and there were some times when visiting with my grandmother, as she was getting some dementia. she would talk about Papa getting mad, and boy, y'all just do. I'm like, man, and Papa was a big man. You know, he was 6'3" or 4. I never seen him mad. You know, I can't recall him being mad, and it was because by the time I come along, you know, and in that story with what he dealt with in World War II, recovering bodies, I mean, he really was a humble man, very humble, and he just didn't let nothing become a big deal. That's what I hope to one day grow up and be, is that kind of guy that don't let things be a big deal, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was reading something, and it says there's something that lurks in all of us, but having the control and the wisdom, keep it there.
You know, speaking with humble, which we're going to do a deal on being meek, but, you know, meek is not weak, you know.
Right.
Meek is the most powerful sucker, but it's always under control.
Under control.
That's what meek means. And so, you know, I think before you can become meek, you must first be humble. I mean, I don't think you can get the meekness without being humble, in my opinion. Coach, what do you think?
I think if you've got to tell somebody, if you have to tell somebody what you are or who you are, what you're doing, it's all show.
Yeah.
If they can't see it in you,
That's right.
hey, you're walking the wrong line.
You can show me better than you can
You
tell me.
bet. You bet. I ain't interested in you telling me how good
That's
you
right.
are. Just get out there and do your job, and I'll see how good you are.
You know, we referenced the Super Bowl last week, and there's several things that have come out about Jalen Hurts where he's commented, you know, and he lives in a very modest little house, you know. I mean, he's just very humble. And he made several references, different comments, and he's mastered this one-liner kind of thing. He throws them out there, and they're like mic drops, you know. But he's not prideful at all. Right. He's just humbly making a statement, you know, and he lives it, and that's huge. So I got a question for you, real quick. This is just, when have you been humbled? Each one of you, give me a quick story of a moment or a time that you know that you got humbled. Either you humbled yourself, life humbled you, or God smoked that butt and you got humbled.
When I was a sophomore in high school, I was kind of pointed the wrong direction a little bit, and I'll never forget. We were at lunch one day, and I'm with all these athletes, guys who were really making things happen at our school. And there was one guy that was in a class with me. I wasn't in athletics at the time, but one guy who was in a PE class with me, and he was a loudmouth, and I just kind of followed right along there. And one of my friends walked up to me after it was all said and done, and said, "You don't need to talk like that in order for us to get along." And hey, I stopped cussing at that point.
No kidding.
My life. From that point forward,
no need it.
I didn't need it.
You're right.
Gosh, all right, so tell me that, because I need to quit cussing.
Hey, and it's
the truth.
Oh yeah,
it's the truth.
Hey,
you don't have to use cuss words to make your point.
The same year, there was one guy in the PE class, another guy in the PE class, and I was mouthing off, and he called me over to the side and he said, "If you say that one more time to me, I'm fixing to beat the crap out of you." I was done. I mean, hey, he was about. I mean, had a full beard. I wasn't even growing hair on my legs at the time. So he was. You
said yes, sir.
I said yes, sir, and I sat down, and and later on we got to be good friends.
Yeah.
But it was just, I've been told to sit down and shut up
You
more
bet.
than one time.
You bet.
I had a similar situation. I was a correctional officer, and you know, you live that life, and when you're in there and you're leading those work squads, you can't say please do this. You can't say please do that. I mean, it's a totally different environment, and I had a guy jam me up. You know, at I don't know if it was, they call it the free world from, you know, inside there, but he jammed me up. He's like, "You don't realize how much you cuss, do you?" He's like, "About every third word is a cuss word out of your mouth." And I didn't even realize I was doing it just because, you know, I was there 6-7 days a week in that world.
Yeah.
And then after he jammed me up and held me accountable, you start realizing.
You start hearing yourself a little more.
You start hearing yourself a little more, and then you start realizing how callous that environment will make you to your family and your parents and this and that. And I mean, as a man, when you start evaluating yourself, it's a pretty big slap upside the face. And you know, that was one of the deciding factors when I realized I needed to find a different change, because I don't see how. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I couldn't do it at that time in my life. Try to walk,
be in that environment,
maintain what we're supposed to do.
Yeah,
that's a hard line to
sometimes it's humbling to go, I got to do something different.
Yes, sir.
But I mean, that's just being humble. I got to do something different. I can't do this and be who I need to be.
Or even at that, because Homer, same thing. I've been in the oil field, and you get that. I stopped selling insurance because I had to be too nice. I'm not doing it. I'm not built for that. So, but when I put that responsibility on myself, it's not anybody else's job to filter me.
Right.
I do that for me.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to make that change to a different career path.
Right.
Start right there internally.
Right.
So,
right. I can't even begin to list the times I've been humbled. I mean, there's so many. I mean, it's all my life, you know. But one that come to my mind when Coach was talking, as a grown man, I had a feed store and two little babies. Aunt Ricky Lee was in diapers still, and I built panels, cattle panels, and I'd go to Shreveport, Bossier City, and they had a chain link manufacturing company, and they'd sell seconds. There was bundles of tubing. They'd sell a whole, but they sold it by weight, cash only. Had to be in line on Monday mornings, be 3 or 4 trucks, 5 trucks, first come, first serve. Man, so I'd go over, I'd be over there 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd have my $400, $500, $600, whatever it was, and I'd buy all I could buy, because I'd build all them panels, and that's how we were eating on them. You know, when Christy was helping me, it was just the two of us. I taught her how to run a chop saw. She'd chop saw, and I'd bevel them things, and I'd run that wire welder, and we was doing it. Well, I got all I could afford, and there was some pipe left, and I'm like, man, I done lost $100. I was plumb sick. I mean, I lost $100, and I'm coming back to 20. Right there's downtown Bossier, just past all the boats. I'm coming back to 20, and I found that other 100. I'm like, look at that. I'm so excited. Well, I'm pulling a gooseneck trailer, and I turned into a parking lot, and I'm like, heck yeah, I'm going back, Jack. I'm getting another $100 worth of this pipe. And I didn't realize I turned into a bank drive-through. And I'm like, well, crap. And women was opening up the shutters, going to work. And this smart aleck sucker, me, says, I'm going to scare snot out of them. I'm going to go through that drive-through at about 25 miles an hour. And when I did, I took 2 teller machines with me. Jack, you talk about a bad morning. So that 100 that I found that I was show out on, it never fails. Every time I'm such an idiot. I'm going to watch this. That always is a moment. Watch this comes right before humble.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Sir.
So I got a ton of those stories, but David is a great principle. King David, when you watch David, and you read and study about King David, and he failed with Bathsheba, and you can read his Psalms 51 is his humbled statement, right? I love every time I'm down or struggling, I'll read Psalms 51, and I'm going to read just a little bit of it. And mind you, David has just been humbled by Nathan, right? It was Nathan that came to him and called him out, and I mean, it broke him. And David writes, have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions, wash me thoroughly from my iniquities and cleanse me from my sin. He's petitioning God's goodness. And he says, for I know my transgressions and my sin is ever before me. Against you and you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight, so that you may be justified in your words and blameless in your judgment. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin my mother conceived me. Behold, you delight in truth in the inward being, and you teach me wisdom in the secret heart. That's when you're humble. When we down there to that inner being, and we pouring out that secret heart. That's that heart nobody else knows. You know, that's when you know. And so, and then he says, "Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow." He goes on to there's more to it, but the moment he said, "My inward being," you know, he's focusing on that. That's the humblest part. That's when a man's really humble, or anybody, woman too. When they're humble is when they're not holding this inside. It's not holding back. It's all poured out. And so, you know, when you think about David and you think about his mistakes, how long could he have stayed bound up in pride? Over, you know, and you know, I mean, think about all he did. You know, not only did he take Bathsheba, he got her pregnant, and then he got what was homeboy's name?
Her husband.
Yeah, Bathsheba's husband. Uriah got him killed. You know, got him killed. Got him. But all that was pride. All that was pride that made him make all those decisions. But he finally, you know, he broke when he was humbled by Nathan. You know, Nathan come at him. So, you know, what's best? To be humble yourselves, or for God to have somebody else do it, or God himself humble you?
I think the experience altogether.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how it happens.
It's just good that it happens.
Somebody, and not somebody, I'm a mirror. I've been hard-headed enough, and I'm like, no, that pride's there. It's there. And it's been both ways. Like with Homer, I did it myself.
Yeah.
And there's been times God said, "Nuh-uh, here, you'll do it from here from now on."
Right.
And it's something else. When we're talking about a humbling, I've had, like you, Jay, a
bunch.
lot of them.
Yeah.
But there was a time I was in Sabine Pass. I think it was 196 tons, 66 foot. Crane operator got sick, had to go see his mother. She was dying. They picked up that leg. The new crane operator didn't know what to do. And when you see that fall on a man, and he has to lay there for 2 days because there's not a crane around to come get him. So heavy he didn't even bleed. And humbling is all the people that could have got killed.
Yeah, yeah.
And it only ended up being
one. Yeah.
So that experience, I really however that storm comes, when they say praise him in the storm, I am a big believer.
Yeah, yeah.
It does, because he's trying to show you something.
And he's always in them, in the storms, right? I mean,
absolutely.
But if we're not humble, we won't praise him in them.
Do you think people are scared to be humble due to the consequences of being humble or admitting?
I think we avoid consequences at all costs in our society. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he did it. If he did it, ever showed up at my house, I'm gonna whoop him for a month and a half, because when my kids were little, he did it, and it was always he did it. You know, I mean, it's like we just don't. You know, I mean, but we get grown up people that you know wasn't me. And they just won't take no. You know, and the consequences are painful. I mean, there are consequences are so they take that avenue of avoiding and running from or dodging, and as long as they possibly can.
Right.
And the longer they do, the more pride builds up and fear builds up, and then the more humble you are whenever it happens. Yeah. You know, I'm like Galen. I you know, which y'all watch me preach. I can't preach without being broken. I mean, it's because I can't do it. I can't make. Right. I can't. I just, if there's anything in me that I'm holding on to out of pride or out of fear, before I even get started, I gotta just dump it. You know.
Yes, sir.
And it's because I've learned I can't function with fellowship with the Lord if I'm holding on to it. I just got to give it up. I just got to give it up. And honestly, it's probably the best blessing I got.
It is.
You know what I'm saying?
For me as well.
Is that I'm forced to humble myself regularly, and you know take it on the chin.
I got a question for you guys concerning false humility. Okay, so I know a lot of people who beat themselves up in front of everybody and all that stuff. Now, my question is just like David. is that something you need to do publicly, or is that something that is between you and your Lord?
I think it depends on. For me, it depends on two things. You got to function within your measure. Within like I'm a pastor of a church, so I know everybody gripes pastors and preachers' kids when they live like they're in a fishbowl. Well, it don't matter. Tough crap. I feel like I live in a toilet bowl. Everybody likes to watch it flush. I mean, so that's the life I live. So, but I think everything we do should be like if I need to humble myself to you personally, it's because I've personally offended you or done you wrong. That's a personal matter, and that's not public. That's a personal, and that's how it should be handled. I think in our lives, that's how we should. If it's a public offense and it's a public display of pride that you're toting.
What if it's not something that's public? What if it's something that's inside you? Because I think if you're going to talk about true humility,
talking about just like thoughts or
I mean just the way you look at other people,
right,
the way you treat other people, the attitude that you take when you deal with people and do your job or you do business with people. What
if you're like Galen's dealing with a guy that's a lot younger than him at work, and he's holding him accountable, and the guy ain't being humble. The guy's he's still saying, I got this. Well, when that guy needs to humble himself to Galen, because Galen's the one trying to help him through it, because Galen's older and he's wiser, just like you've done for me. There's been a time or two that I've had to ask you, what should I do with that? That's me humbling myself in a private matter to deal with a private matter. However, Scripture says that we know that there's people in our churches and in our lives that are there for a reason, and that's to help us in our areas of our weakness. Whether it's mentor or you confessing. Scripture says if we confess our sins to one another, it's beneficial. I can't think in my head where it's at, and that ain't exactly how he says it, but when you confess our sins to one another, there's healing that takes place, is what the Scripture says. So if you want, that's humbling though, right?
Absolutely.
So when I confess to you, or I confess to, y'all, or there's something can happen.
Yeah, you're bringing it out of the darkness into light.
That's right. And the Scripture says that what has strength in darkness is weakened in the light. And so, I think there is a time and a place for public, but I think every aspect of humility, there has to be an engagement with another person. I don't believe you can be.
That's what I'm at.
You can humble yourself before the Lord,
but He already knows it anyway.
And He knows your heart.
Right.
But to walk in humility is to be humble before man. Yes, walk humbly before your Lord, absolutely, but humble yourself before man. I think that's where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion. My heart, like my wife is, to be humble with her, and dealing with her, being humble. If I'm not humble and right with the Lord, I ain't gonna be with her.
Right.
But the Scripture plainly says, deal with your wives, as the weaker vessel, not meaning they're fragile and can't handle it. I mean, they give birth. If it was up to us to give birth, there'd be one and done across the board, Jack. So it ain't that they ain't tough; it's that they're more precious. Their design was not to carry those big heavy loads, so don't crush them, right? Yeah. And so, I have to remind myself, and then I have to go back to her and go, hey, I talked to you like you were Galen, and I should not. And I do not want to be sleeping with Galen tonight. I want to be sleeping. So I ought not to talk, right?
Right.
It is humbling. But I think if you can't walk humbly with the Lord in private, you will not walk humbly with man. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's a relationship that you're building with the Lord. So think about this, guys. James 4:6, it says, He gives more grace. Therefore, it says, God opposes the proud, but He gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God and resist the devil, and he will flee. So that tells us, like just in those two verses, you hear the power of humility.
Right.
Because he says, humble yourselves, resist the devil. If you don't humble yourself, you're not in the power position to resist the devil. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's huge when you start grasping the power of humility, because the devil's a powerful force. Most of us think we resist the devil, and we ain't. All we're doing is resisting our stinking flesh, and we blame it on the devil.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Most of us, every time a guy double checks that chick on the corner or goes to that same mini mart every morning because she's showing her tatas off, well, it ain't the devil making you do that. That's your stinking horny self doing it, right?
it.
So the point is that humility puts us in the power position to resist the devil. He's way more powerful than our ignorant flesh. He's way more powerful than the tons of little demons he's got running around.
That's right.
But I mean, but if you ain't humble, you ain't in the power position. And so I want you to think about some times when you did humble yourself and you seen God's mighty hand, and you seen God do things in your life. When David humbled himself, and got down before the Lord, he was restored. He remained king. He is the man that is a man after God's own heart in the scripture, and he messed up much as any of us. However, he had to deal with a lot of guys with pride, like Saul. He dealt with Saul for years, and Saul ended up taking his own life. And I think when you watch somebody and you deal with somebody as you're growing up that's got a pride issue, it really, like my dad struggled with pride. I don't never. My dad was married 5 times, and every one of them wives was wrong. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So I just think, think about in your life a time when, you did humble yourself and God put you in the power position and you were able to. Anything come to mind? Anything you guys got that you want to share about?
I can tell you the one that the Lord, when we went through our journey of having children. And, we had Sydney, and then 6 years later, we still hadn't, and my prideful flesh, I wanted the son to carry on our family name. And 6 years, trying to have another child, and it just wasn't working. And we had finally come to the point to where Sandy was ready to pursue, some type of fertile, in vitro or what, fertility type stuff. And, we tried that for 3 months. We gave the Lord 3 months and said, hey, we're going to try this for 3 months. And if he closes that door, then we'll know what that was. And, and my prideful self is I wasn't ready to give up, and pursue adoption, because there was other avenues to expand your family.
Right.
And sure enough, 3 months into the deal, we ended up at Baylor Hospital having emergency surgery with a twin ectopic pregnancy, and one in each of her tubes, and had to remove both of it. And God pretty much slammed the door, and he's like, this ain't the path for you.
Right.
This is the other path.
Well, and then if you think about it, your wife's life was
absolutely,
and all because, in your heart, you knew you was determined to have a son.
Yes, sir.
That's powerful.
But in the world of adoption, what little did I know is, once we did that paperwork, 2 weeks later, we had a call, and 14 days later, we had a kid in our house.
Yeah.
That's unheard of in
that's crazy.
In that line.
Yeah.
So, he wrecked my world pretty good, saying this ain't about you.
Right,
right. And today I've got a 12-year-old son that's got my name, and he's my kid.
You bet. Yeah, that's your son.
So, yes, sir.
Yeah, he's my son. So here's a couple of rapid-fire questions. You ever admitted you were wrong in an argument?
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have y'all, all right, so that's...
Now that these gray hairs have started showing up.
So let me ask you this, and you got to be honest. Do you ever just admit you're wrong just to shut her up? You just say, and you ain't wrong. See, would that be false humility?
I don't know. I've done it, whether it's false humility or not. I've done it.
Might be considered wisdom in some.
Might be considered wisdom, yeah, just to put an end to it. So, all right, here's another one. When have you gave credit to someone else that you did it, but you let somebody else take the credit? Can you recall one of them? Can you share one? Then you didn't take the bait, man.
That's the humility part of that thing is gone at that point in time. I'm not interested in sharing anything. about that.
I was trying to set the hook, Jack.
Yeah.
Oh, me. So I help someone out with no expectations. Do that pretty regular, you know? Like you try to actively see that opportunity.
Well, you know, you from the pulpit all the time, you talk about times whenever you've been driving down the road,
Yeah.
seen somebody
Yeah.
walking or something, and you did something for them that you felt like they needed to do.
Yeah.
And I hope this, forgive me. So, my daughter's been gone through some surgery. So my wife's been staying up there with her for like 2 or 3 weeks. So I went and got her Saturday, and she said, "Can we stop and get something to eat on the way home?" It's the day after Valentine's. There's people all in this restaurant. They're all trying to, and this guy is right across from me, and he's got his daughter with him. She looks like she's maybe 5 or 6 years old. He's in a red shirt with a tie. I mean, he's
Decked out. Studding.
No woman in
Just
the
this little
picture.
girl.
It's just him and his daughter right there. And as we watch that thing, it really touched my heart just to see. He's trying to teach her how to spell some things, and he's leaning over and really just kind of go. This is what we're doing because this is a nice restaurant, and we're gonna. And I just one of the managers walked by, and I just said, "Hey, I want to get that guy's check." Well, the waiter comes over and he's all patting you on the back. I think that's so neat that you did that. And I said, "Do not tell him who did
Right.
this.
Yeah.
This ain't about that.
Yeah.
I'm just getting a blessing because
Absolutely.
I'm watching this guy do what a dad ought to do."
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. And what humbles you is how many of them did you miss?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When you watch that and then you play back in your mind, when you get in your 50s and 60s, you're like, how many of them did I miss?
Yeah, I should have been doing that same kind of thing.
my goodness.
Whenever I was hey,
Yeah.
that's kind of a shot.
That's very humbling when you see somebody that's doing it.
That's a shot
And you
in the
go,
head.
yeah,
You're
boy,
right. It
yeah,
is.
knock the wind out of you.
But you don't realize that in your early years.
I don't think
most
so.
people
Most
don't
of us don't.
Right.
understand that little nudge of what it is.
Yeah,
But now at
our
our
age,
you
yeah.
realize that that wasn't just a coincidence that popped in your head.
right.
You know, that was a nudge that you just blew through.
Yeah, you just brushed it off.
Yes, sir.
That's why we're doing this is because hopefully some more of them guys in their 20s or early 30s and their kid gets 8, 9, 10 years old, they're not just devoted to their coaching and their ball and their grades and their, riding their butt. You need to get your chores done. They do see that you don't never get them dates back. Right. I mean, I
even their work.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we had a young man that said that, he readjusted his life because
That's right.
he did not want to just
He wasn't
work.
gonna miss out no more.
And
Yeah.
that to me is
And there's a ton of there's a ton of work going on out west and in New Mexico, and there's a lot of guys that are out there doing the deal, and they're missing. They're sacrificing,
Right.
and they're paying a high price. I mean, it's expensive. It's expensive enough now. I'm at to the point. We got grandkids on the way, and I told Christy, I said, look, I ain't on paying nobody's bills, but I'll pay daycare. And I'll pay my daughter to take care of my grandkids because it's so important that those babies get that time. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not gonna pay their electric bill for them.
right.
But if they need $300 or $400 a month to help her stay home and take care of that baby, well, I can hustle a little bit more and make their. You know what I'm saying? I can do without something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, crap. None of us here can't do without a few things.
Yes, sir.
So because it's so valuable and so important that those kids spend and get that time with their mom. Think about this: how especially young men, how often do you see a young man take correction without getting defensive?
I wouldn't say defensive. A lot of them get in their feelings.
Yeah, yeah,
And to me, it's just a little bit different.
Right.
They want to sulk now instead of like when we took a kick in the britches in our day, we'd get a gear.
yes, sir.
And they don't do that now.
Man,
It's like Joe talked about last week. The generation has been feminized.
mm-hmm.
And, you hear people say, well, he's whatever toxic or whatever it is. No, you're not for everybody.
Right.
I know I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
for everybody.
yeah.
Well,
Everybody's not meant to deal with me.
Just think of I remember coaches, when I was playing ball in high school and how they communicated. And
Tell us, Coach. How did y'all
Getting humbled one more time.
the communication is different in this day and time.
Absolutely.
And if it's not, then there's consequences for that.
Sure,
I
yeah.
mean, it's it's just a different age. So the young guys, I think they can still be held accountable, but whoever's is bringing that to them, they've got to communicate it in a different way these days.
It ain't just screaming and cussing in their face.
It ain't.
It don't do it. And I think we can make men. You know what I'm saying? I think it's our responsibility. And it's an honor to be trusted to help make and develop men. I think I'm like you. We just got to find the way, find the method.
Okay, I got another deal for you. When you were coming up, did you have somebody picked out that you looked to and said, I want a little more of what that guy's got?
Yeah, I did. In every area of life, if it was on the football field, I had a guy or two. If it was cowboying, I had my dad. If it was being able to work or just never quit, man, my old man couldn't stay married, but I don't think he could quit a marriage in a minute. But boy, that sucker could work. Golly bum. So yeah, I had him.
I've realized the older I get, I didn't really, my dad was my dad, but now that I'm at the age now and I look back at his life and some of the conditions that he was faced with and his
You have
mobility.
a whole lot more respect. Don't
Oh
you?
my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, most people today, they would have quit. They'd laid
quit.
down.
They'd have
He
thrown
got
the flag.
polio when he was
Yep.
16
Yeah.
and was told he'd never walk and
Overcome it.
overcome it. And he hunted, he coon hunted, up until his probably 50s and 60s, you didn't know it. I mean, he was one-legged, but he still did everything he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
The reason I'm asking is because I was in my mid-40s, and I really took an inventory on the people that I
Look to.
had drawn from.
Yeah.
And I wrote 3 of those guys a letter telling them how much I appreciated what they had done for me in my life, what an example they were for me. And none of them came to me and said thank you. Hey, they accepted that deal, and they just went on being who they were.
That's right.
Because that's who they were.
That's right.
They weren't looking for a pat on the
They
back.
weren't- they didn't need that
weren't in it
feather.
for
They
what?
wasn't doing it specifically for you. It was just them.
Hey,
Just who they
just
were.
being
That's right.
Yeah.
the kind of people that you want to be like, the kind of people you never begrudge for success because you say, hey, that kind of guy right there is the kind of guy God needs to be blessing because he's going to turn around and give it to somebody else.
I had that same thing, Coach, and that's not about me, but I knew a guy that I worked for at Kenny Creek. It didn't matter 2:30 in the morning, or if he got off at Eastman, it was 6. He was putting out feed, baling hay. I don't know when he ever slept.
Yeah.
But 2:30 in the morning, he'd call. We got a truck. Take that flatbed in the barn before it burned down, load it, take it out, 500 bales in that double deck,
No kidding.
send it to Florida.
Yeah.
Y'all got time to go to school.
We
And,
got plenty of time. Get this done before school.
and Wayne meant that.
Yeah.
When we got done, that was it. I was welding on a wellhead one time, and I passed out. My metformin, I got sick, sweated too much, ended up calling the ambulance. My daughter said, why don't you quit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Easy response. I don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I want to raise my son, any kid I ever coached.
Right.
And they can tell you, I pushed them to
Yeah.
that want to
Yeah. That's right.
But
yeah.
you have to learn at some point in your life, it's going to get tough. It's going to kick you in the pants.
Yeah.
But just don't quit.
Don't quit. Yeah.
Don't quit.
Don't quit. That's something that, all right, so Jesus is the example of humility, and he didn't quit. He finished. Big difference. My goal, I may have told y'all this, my goal when I die, and I'm good to go whenever he lets me, but I want my headstone to say, no longer needed. I mean, I really want to. That's what Paul said when he said to Timothy, "I've finished the race. I've fought the fight, and I'm done. I'm finished." He looked around, and he looked around. He wasn't needed no more. He said, "I've done everything. There's nothing else for me to do here."
Right.
I mean, man, that's when you know. So I hope I achieve that, and I want to work towards that. But that's what Jesus said on the cross when he said, "It is finished." He never lost his humility. He even up at the Lord's Supper, you know, when he not the Lord's Supper, but when we call it the Lord's Supper, where we take communion and he washed their feet. And he got up in John chapter 13. When he had finished, he washed their feet. He put on his outer garments. He resumed his place, and he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and your teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done." All right, now all that's cool. You know what I'm saying? All that's good. I mean, I'm right with you, Lord, until I think about it a minute, and I realize that sucker washed Judas's feet.
That's what I said. Would you hit him?
Ooh.
And I'm gonna be honest. I'd punch that son gun.
I just know it. I don't know. I couldn't do it. I would T-bone. If I could pass it, I'd T-bone him with my truck. I would take the sucker out, even if it took me out in the middle of it, right? And I know that's wrong. That's wrong. I am nowhere near as humble as Jesus.
Nope.
No, I mean, and you'd think by now I would be. You know, I've messed up so much in my life, and His grace and His mercy has been so limitless. You know, every time I'm humble, He gives me what I need, the grace to continue. But to think about, He knew. See, He knew Judas was going to be Judas. He knew it, and He washed his feet. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Why do you think you can't get to that?
I don't know, Homer. I ain't grown up yet. I guess I don't know.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
That's tough. But He says in verse 17, He says, "If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them."
So if you don't do them, are you not blessed?
You're missing blessings. You know, all right, so blessed is a condition we live in. We are blessed because we're children of God, right? We are blessed, but there's blessed and there's abundantly blessed and there's more blessed. And we're blessed to the measure that we can be trusted with the blessings. And so I guarantee you, everywhere I got pride, every issue that I'm not humble with, that just means He can't fully trust me with it. Mm-hmm. So I'm withholding, I'm restricting, you know, the blessings that He has for me, because I'm a blessed man. That's I live blessed. But there's, you know, blessed is a condition.
So if I come up Sunday,
you could do anything. Oh, to wash my feet? Would you allow?
You gonna deny Him a blessing?
That was biblical times. And they wore sandals. I tell you for sure, the first time you catch me publicly in a pair of sandals, you can wash my feet.
Hey. You got manure over your feet every time I've ever
the sandals was biblical times.
That's right.
I did have a guy one day at church one Sunday morning. I mean, it was pretty full, and it's been a while. And y'all know I can't see nothing out of my right eye, you know, so I don't see him coming. I'm standing there worshiping the Lord, and I don't see him, and all of a sudden this sucker's wiping my feet, and I'm like, what? And he looks up and he says, "Blessed are the feet of the." It's a scripture. Blessed are the feet of the ones that bring the message, or something. Beautiful are the feet of the ones who carry the messengers of Christ. And I'm like, thank you. Now, I mean, you got to get up. You know, you're making me nervous as crap. You know, it is very humbling.
So was that pride?
I don't know. It was dang sure uncomfortable. I don't know if it's...
Didn't we talk about that? Being comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Yeah, learning to be comfortably uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all part of learning and growing. And I think if we were to literally live our lives as Christ, we ain't got to pull nobody's shoes off. But there are some people in our lives that we probably need to make sure they know I love you and I forgive you and I ask you to do the same. You know, one of the last conversations I had with my dad, he was killed in a car wreck. He was killed in a car wreck on Kendall Grace, my youngest daughter's second birthday. He didn't come to her birthday party. He was too busy. He didn't, she turned 2. He really didn't know her because we had adopted her, and the last I went to his house one evening and I knocked on his door and he opened his door and I said, Dad, we need to fix this, man. I'm sorry. I know I've been a jerk. I know, our company, we didn't work out together. That's all right. But I mean, you ain't got to work together, but you're my dad and I got your grandkids. I mean, can we fix this, And his words were, if there's a problem, it's yours because I ain't got no problem. I'm like, you ain't seen your grandkids in 3 years. I mean, you drive by my house and me and the girls will be out there pitching. We built that batting cage and all. He'd drive right by and he'd never stop because he was so prideful, And it just broke my heart, And I'm like, so I was trying to wash his feet and he kicked me with his feet, basically. But I'm not bragging on me because I promise you, there's still some feet washing I need to do.
Going in a different direction with my dad. Growing up, and this actually happened when I was teaching at Carlisle.
Okay. Probably the best school you ever taught at.
It was one of the funnest times I've ever had. It really was.
Well, people from Carlisle can have fun with a rock and a stick.
We took some guys to FCA camp in Estes Park, Colorado. And I'm there, and of course, hey, when you're up there with all those guys, it's easy to be moved and stuff. And I realized that I had not told my dad that I loved him. And I made a phone call, and it's the first time I can really ever remember him telling me he loved me.
Really? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, we regularly told each other how we felt, just, hey, supportive. And there's a lot of times he'd make me so mad, but could always end up with that conversation going on. And I got to finish.
Yeah,
with that deal. That was really, really important to
Absolutely.
me. Whenever he passed away, he was a member of a group of older guys that rode motorcycles together, and they were former police officers from Texas and California. And he was so sick that he couldn't go. So I went to someplace in Idaho. I can't remember what it is now, but Mark calls me, my brother calls me and says, hey, you need to get home. So I'm driving all night long. I finally get a plane in Denver, leave the motorcycle in Denver, get on a plane, and I'm flying back. I land in Dallas, and my nephew, I think, was there to pick me up. And we start around the loop in Dallas, and he calls me and says, hey, you need to slow down. He's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah.
But that was, hey, I went to represent him.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
With that
Yeah.
group.
You went to honor him and be with that group.
Yeah, and hey,
Yeah.
It was, I mean, I'm a little bitter because while they're all standing around him, I mean, the things that they said that were going on,
Right.
just I would have loved to have
been
been
part of
there,
that.
to been a part
Had
of
that moment.
But hey, you just you do what you're called to do, and sometimes it comes
That's
out
right.
the way you want to. Sometimes it's not
sometimes-
quite there.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
But I tried to fulfill my duty to honor him, and I hate that I missed
Right.
the good stuff.
Right,
But
right.
it was what it is. What it is.
So, all right, let me throw a couple things at you real quick and we'll start wrapping up. How can men practice humility daily? What is something we can tell these guys to start practicing? To practice, put humility in a practice. The first thing that pops in my mind is open the door for people.
That is it. But open the door for yourself. Really being joyful about life that you have. There's so many people that walk around with their head down and they think the sky is falling.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the good Lord woke you up that morning.
Be thankful about something.
Yeah, you can walk and wipe your own butt.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing.
That is enough.
Yeah. Homer?
I think being respectful to others
Yeah.
is a sign of humility, is when you show honor
You
to
bet.
someone else.
Yeah. And
You're-
just genuine
you're taking a
appreciation.
step back. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I go along with what Homer said. It's what you expect from somebody when they do something. I mean, are you looking for something that you're going to get out
Right.
of it? Or
Or you just
doing it because
just doing
that's the way
it.
you
Just
need to
doing
do
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's another one. And this is one that you guys really have to practice. I don't have to practice it because I got it down pat. Listening more and speaking less. Okay.
That's the reason why you're the host tonight.
We're letting you practice.
We hammered on the guys Wednesday night about serving without expecting credit, serving without being noticed, and I'm just throwing it. I noticed 2 or 3 of them Saturday night after testing the bulls, and Saturday during the cooking, and all them boys was hustling. You know, they were active, and I was like, man, you know, they were busy, you know, and enjoying it. They was happy about it.
Even Thursday.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, even Thursday
Cut up.
night.
I mean,
Yeah.
we had so many guys Thursday night. We were through cutting and cleaning nuts by 7:30.
Yeah.
I mean, it was early.
No, it was earlier than that.
Was
Because
it?
I got there 6:45 ish.
We were
thinking that we were still gonna cut till 9:30,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody was done. The cleanup was done.
Yeah.
Unclean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. All them guys showing up. What about accepting correction without making excuses? That is something I see young guys. There's a reason. Every time they give you their reason, and you're just, you know, I've gotten to where if I'm dealing with, like, they're working for me, I just tell them, shut up. I don't care. I chewed one of them out this morning because I told him to open the gate on the lane. He opened the gate on the lane, opened the gate on the scales, opened the gate going out the other lane. You know, so when I bring out 20-something yearlings up, I just need them in the lane where I can sort the 2 off that I need, right? Well, all of them go right through the barn, and I'm a horseback on the backside of the barn. He's on the other side, and I yell at him, did I tell you to open a single gate on the scale? No, I told you to open the gate at the lane. When you going to just do what I say do? Not no more, not no less. He's just looking at me. And then I got through sorting them off. I said, I might have been a little over reactive at you. I said, but, you know, let me ask you a question. If that calves would have went to the right and that trailer gate was closed, not open, do you see where they could have went? Because the only thing that kept them from going on Highway 64 was the gates on my trailer were open. And he's like, oh, my gosh, I didn't think about that. It's because
Had them on Highway 64.
yeah, you ain't never scraped them up off the highway, you know.
That's right.
But he took it. He didn't make no excuses. He didn't, you know. He's been helping me since the summer, since August. You know, well, I mean, in August he'd had 42 reasons why he probably, you know. I thought that's what you. Yeah, I thought what you mean. So it's important that we help and learn and teach to accept correction without excuses.
When I was traveling a few months ago with Brett Schaefer, he said a phrase, and he was talking about his dog. He had a little pup that we was, you know, roping and stretching out yearlings and cutting them, and he was just a pup, and he would run up in the middle of it and get stomped and just in the way most of the time.
Yeah.
And that little old catchphrase, he gonna learn something by doing something, and that phrase has stuck with me ever since. And that's what most of us have to do. We got to
right.
do it in order to learn it.
That's right. Most all of us learn it and got the scars to prove it.
And you know as well as I do. I mean, you're a hands-on person.
Yeah, yep.
And really, the only way you're going to do it is when you screw it up.
That's right.
And
Yep.
it's going to stick with you more than someone just saying,
Every
don't
time.
do that.
Yeah, and they ever give you a manual and tell you study this, it'll help you.
Right over the shoulder.
Yeah,
I got her.
yeah. I mean, let me train wreck it a few times and I'll figure it out. I don't know why we're like that. You see another man struggling. Say it's just you see another man struggling. Do you just go up and help him, or do you just back up and go, hey, if he wanted help, he'd ask, and leave it alone?
That's a hard one for me.
Yeah, me too.
I can ask, and I've gotten to that point.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is there something I can do for you?
yeah. I did it Sunday, you know, which it's my calling. You know what I'm saying? And I do this every Sunday. I try to walk and just pray. And I'm not looking for anybody, but I'm looking for somebody. And it's somebody that the Lord's going to. And I just, man, we were already in, Dave was singing and church was, we were started. And I just was turned around and a guy just right behind me. And I just walked up to him and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And I squatted down because the music was playing. I couldn't hear him, so I squatted down. And I asked, "How are you?" looking at him, but he happened to be where he was on my left side, and I could see his wife. And his answer was, "I'm making it," and she was going. And I said, "Is there anything I can pray for?" I don't know why I was drawn to him. He said, "Well, I got some dang health issues in my legs. I got to have." I don't know if it's knee replacement. I don't want to, I wasn't sure, but he said I got to have surgery, and I'm just having a hard time with it. And so my prayer was, Lord, help us as men adjust to be the man we are, not the man we used to be, because it's hard on a man. The older I've gotten, and you realize I can't do what I used to could do. And this guy's
humbling.
It's very humbling. But so I'm like Galen, but I'm learning to do it so humbly that if it's offensive to him, I can ease off. And they never realize, I can try to be or want to be.
How many years has it taken you to get to that?
Homer, there's no telling how many men I've pissed
As a young
off.
guy,
yeah.
It's intimidating to go up to someone with the fear of not knowing what they're fixing to tell you and not knowing what to tell you when really all you got to do is just pray for them.
Yeah. I mean,
you don't have
huge.
to really know that. It's just like making hospital visits.
That's right.
Nobody knows what to say in those
There ain't
situations.
nothing to say. Just be praying.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I think it's humbling on both the men. You know what I'm saying? If that man humbled himself and said, "Hey, I gotta," it was humbling for me to just approach him because, he could be like, "Man, get your dog goat smelling self away from me. I don't need nothing from you." And it's a fear of rejection that all of us carry.
Yeah.
So, it does take, but it's good. I mean, it's needed. It's so valuable. How do you handle small moments of humility determines, here's the truth, how you handle small moments of humility determines whether God will trust you with bigger things. It's how we handle life and how we handle ourselves as men of God humbly that increases God's trust in us. Because he ain't gonna give you nothing you can be prideful. I mean, he can't trust you where you got pride. And so, I always try to remember, just like with this podcast thing, I'm like, man, shoot, this ain't me. This ain't my doings. This deal right here. But you know what? It's if it helps one guy, if it encourages one person, then it's worth doing. If one, in fact, I need to remind everybody, Joe, even though Joe's in West Texas, he's still being the boss. He texts me and says, "Tell them the link is in the comments section below to download the digital version of the workbook or order the workbook," because we had several people asking about that workbook. So it's in the link in the comments. Did I say that right? Link in the comments. Look at the link in the comments and click it, download it, or ask for it. We'll mail it to you. We do appreciate everybody. Remember, James 4:10, humble yourselves before the Lord and he will lift you up. Man.
My last thing.
Close us out.
My John Wayne quote. Okay? I gave you one last time.
Yep, I need
Here
another.
it is right now.
All right.
John Wayne's wife comes to him and says, "Hey, I want you to let our daughter go live with me." And he looks at her and he says, "If she goes with you, she'll be all show and no stay." Guys, your job is to be all stay, not all show.
That's right. You bet. Yeah. That was McClintock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey.
By the way, McClintock. Watch it if you ain't never seen it. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for joining us. Adios.